Well, I think the snow might have scared people away. What happened here? We're missing people this morning. But I see Susan, and I see Karen, and I see Diane. My long-suffering partners in crime. Thank you for helping with the overnight. And I hope you caught up on some sleep. You must have, because you're smiling and you're here.
How many children did you have?
We had 19.
Oh boy.
Yeah, we had one cancel at the last minute, so I thought we'd have 20, but we had one stay home.
That's still pretty good.
It was pretty good. Good time. We started out at the bowling alley and ate down there, and then came back here and lit things on fire and stuff like
What
that.
time did you get to sleep?
What's that?
What time did you get to sleep?
Oh, Susan said 3. So they played hide and seek in the dark till about, was it about 11:30 maybe?
It was about 11, I think we were in the rooms, in the thing.
Oh, we got them down there by 11? Boy, that's early than usual.
It was just fine for me.
Yeah. Usually it's about midnight or so. I knew we were earlier, but I didn't think it was quite that early.
I may be wrong.
Okay. And but then we had a steady stream of people up in the night that we were dealing with. And then we had a young man who was had a wrestling match in the morning, and we had to get up at 5:30 to get him and his sister ready to be picked up by the parents. So yeah, we didn't get a lot of sleep. It was a.
Did he win? Did you hear that he won the match?
I messaged his mom and said, please tell me how he did, and I haven't heard back from her. I don't know what that means. Yeah. Okay.
No news is good news.
He had so little sleep.
Yeah.
And then he was also not eating and drinking very much because he was trying to make weight, which I wish they would not do with those kids. I think it's a mistake. Honestly, I think it's a mistake. And we'll see how things turned out. I'll hear from them at some point. But yeah.
When we played, what was it, before high school football, Pat, we had the Desert Colts, the little Buckeyes. They would have to wrap plastic around my bat themselves, and I'd have to run around until I lost it.
Okay, they're trying to drag the water out of you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was wearing this heavy like poncho thing
Yeah.
to try to burn some of the, not burn calories, but
sweat some of
take
it
off
out.
the sweat.
Yeah.
But it just makes you weak, I think.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, I just don't think it's a wise practice. But That's something they do. All right. Well, before we get into the lesson today, I'm going to give you a little update on ancient slings. I've been doing a little research on that, trying to understand it a little bit better myself. And I've got my warfare in the classical world here. So the examples are going to be from Greek literature and art, but they will give us a sense of what some of this looked like and how it worked. I've marked several pages. On one page you'll see an example of how when they're relaxing, what they do with their helmet, okay, which may be what Goliath was doing, which left him vulnerable. Then I have a collection of earlier Greek helmets and what they looked like to give you a sense of how helmets were in the ancient world. And then one of these pages, where is it here? This page actually shows a slinger. And as I pass this around, I'll be talking a little bit about how the slinging goes. I watched some YouTube videos of guys who research ancient warfare. And they were talking about what process they use for slinging and what they do. So there you go. The size of the stones is maybe about that big. It's the size of a large grape or like a cherry tomato. That was a typical size. In the pictures there, they show a lead shot. They would actually cast lead for the Greeks would for their slingers. And it's cute, they've got the word "take that" written onto the shot. That's apparently, they put little things like that on there when they were shooting them off. The method for slinging goes like this. Let me draw you a picture of the shape of one of these slings, and I'll draw this large so you can see how it looks. Obviously, it wouldn't be that large, but the sling would be shaped sort of like this, and this part right here in the middle would actually be open, typically. And the slings were not made out of leather. I assumed that they were made out of leather, and I found that they typically were not. They would use a fabric like linen, and it would be a woven thing.
You mean for the sling or the thing that held the rock?
For this whole thing would have been woven out of linen.
Okay.
Is what they would have made it out of. And it would have just two strands like this, and then the rock, I drew this larger than the rock, obviously. The rock would rest against those two strings, and the fellows I was looking at said that they do that because if you have a leather pouch, it creates too much friction on the stone, which inhibits it. Whereas if you have this kind of a sling, it holds it well enough, but lets it go easier, okay?
It slips on it.
It slips out, yeah. So the linen is probably, clings to the stone less. They choose smooth stones, obviously, but the linen would cling less. And I think linen doesn't stretch much, if I remember that right. And that would be another reason to use it. When they would sling, this is what the action looks like. You take this part of the sling and you hold it in your hand, and then you have the straps like this. And then you let it go, swing once, swing twice, and let it loose. Or as many times as you want. I mean, it depends on what you practice. You can do it just once, or you can do it multiple times.
Hope it didn't work like a boomerang.
Well, no, it wouldn't be like a boomerang. The boomerang comes back to you. Yeah.
Would it be rhythmed? Like, would they always kind of have the same throw, essentially? Is that the idea?
Yeah, you want to get consistent in what you're doing. And one of the guys was showing the rocks that he was choosing and how he would go through and he would try to get rocks that were of a consistent size and weight. So it had to do with the density of the rocks as well. So they really were studying that. He practiced with a sling that he made for a year. And he got to the point where he could consistently hit a water bottle at 40 feet. And but they said you could sling something as far as, I want to say like 140 or 150 feet to give you how far the range was on this. There was another fellow who was slinging, he was using a lot bigger rocks. So I don't think his numbers are quite right. But he was talking about, I think it was, where did I write that? 75 meters per second as a speed. That translates to 168 miles an hour. But I imagine with smaller stones, it might get faster. Okay, so your major league pitchers are throwing it about, well, a really good fastball is about 100, isn't it?
Yeah.
That would be an excellent fastball. So this is 50% faster still at least. And I underlined a passage in the classical warfare book there. That, Karen, could you read that passage? It's right there at the foot of that page. You see the underlining? Right there. Read that passage.
It would not be seen in flight and was capable of penetrating unprotected flesh to a range of about 100 meters.
So the slingers in a warfare setting would be slinging from a distance. They'd be standing back, and they would shoot that thing out 100 meters. That's longer than a football field. And when it hit, it would penetrate the body. Okay, it was that dangerous.
But the concussion to one's head would be just about as much as bad for you as the penetration.
Yes, yeah. So Goliath gets hit in the forehead, is what the Bible tells us, and that takes him down. I can't remember whether the scripture says it killed him outright, or he might have gone down with a concussion. We know David cuts his head off, makes sure he's dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, these things were lethally dangerous when they hit. Yeah.
A bolt would be too heavy, wouldn't it?
A what would?
A bolt, you could control it,
A bolt?
like a bolt,
Like,
you know.
Oh, if you put it, you put it in a bowl, you mean?
No, a bolt that goes onto the end of a screw.
Oh.
Oh,
Oh, like a nut or a bolt?
Word.
Okay, so you want something that's smooth,
Yeah.
so that it releases
More control.
cleanly.
Probably round,
Yeah.
probably round.
Yeah, you want something that's smooth. I think the ancient text talked about the size of a quail egg, is what the reference they used. Yeah.
I don't know, you're talking on Major League Baseball. When they're throwing the ball, they're throwing it anywhere from 93 to 95, and it's relief pitchers, and then some starters throw it a little bit over 100. They're hitting at 100 a lot of times, but when they hit a batter, he's got a helmet on. That batter still gets concussion, and he can't play the rest of the game. And
Okay.
that's a baseball.
That's in baseball today.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know in weight how a rock that size in a baseball would compare. The baseball's probably heavier.
163 mile an hour doesn't matter.
That's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
Pretty dangerous. So that gives us a little more of a picture of what's going on. Yeah.
Later on, Pastor, they came up with slingshots, which was more accurate than a sling.
Yes.
and less skill required.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
but
Like a
they-
bow and a crossbow. and
Yeah,
stuff.
they were deadly though.
Yeah.
Slingshots for somebody that knew what they were doing.
Oh,
with.
yeah. Yeah, Diane was telling about Jerry uses those when he works.
Bearing,
Say again?
a little round ball
He uses a
bearing.
little round ball bearing,
Yeah.
is all it
Yeah,
takes.
and they're lethal.
Yeah, oh yeah. So we get a little more of a picture of what David was doing when he defeats Goliath and how that process worked. Look at the pictures that you see there, and that'll fill you in a little bit better. We are in chapter 19 today, and we're looking at a story of David and his allies. Earlier we saw how Jonathan learned of his father's murderous intentions and protected David. in this session, we'll be seeing some of the other allies who kept David alive, okay? Let's have somebody read chapter 19, verses 8 through 10. 19, 8 through 10.
And there was a war again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines, and slew them with a great slaughter, and they fled from him. And the evil spirit from the Lord was upon Saul, as he sat in the house with his javelin in his hand, and David played with his hand. And Saul sought to smite David even to the wall with the javelin, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Let's see here. What was the present relationship between Saul and David?
Not very good. Not very good.
Not very good.
Not very good.
Okay, so earlier it says that Saul loved David, he appreciated David, and now he's just simply grown more and more paranoid, more and more fearful of David, and he's even tossing a spear at him. When we use the word spear, the spears were of different sizes and lengths in the ancient world. The common use of a spear was you would hold it under your arm or up over your head, and it was a stabbing weapon. Okay, it was used this way or this way. Okay, they had special spears, and King James here has javelin. They had special spears for throwing. They were smaller and lighter. In the Greek culture, they called them peltasts. They would throw these things. The Romans had their own too, and a soldier fully equipped would have his stabbing kind of spear, and then he would have these smaller ones that you could throw. Yeah.
Wasn't javelin in the Olympics at one time? A javelin
Yes.
throw?
Oh, it still is. It
Yeah,
still
okay.
is. They throw the javelin during the decathlon. And it's made out of like aluminum or titanium or something today, and they can throw them incredible distances
Yeah.
now. But these would have been made out of wood in ancient times, I would imagine. And
Maybe bamboo, it's pretty light.
it could be a reed of some kind. They might have used something of that nature. But when you're thinking spear, don't think of a great big long spear that
Big and
Saul
heavy.
is throwing.
That was the ones
It's
for
a s-
gouging.
Yeah, this is a smaller one. Yeah, like a large arrow maybe. Go ahead.
That's how the Romans fought in a square, and they had
Mm.
specialty swords when they got close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for that
Hard
close
to defeat.
combat, you want a stabbing spear
Yeah,
for
they
close
spawned
combat.
the block. That's how
Yeah.
hard to defeat.
Yeah, especially against things like cavalry or
Oh, yeah.
chariots. That's the formation you'd get. So David and Saul are in bad situation here, though. But David's still with Saul, isn't he? What's he doing for him?
Fighting for him.
He's fighting for him on the one hand. He's doing something else as well.
Running from him.
He's playing music. He's running from him, yeah. He's his running partner. He's playing music for him. He's playing the lyre, it says. So David has continued to be in Saul's company, but the situation has grown more dangerous. Someone read for us verses 11 and 12. There's a new ally here. 11 and 12.
Saul also sent messengers unto David's house to watch him and to slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, If thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain. So Michal let David down through the window and went and fled and escaped.
Okay, thank you. What is the new? Who is the new ally here for David?
David's wife.
David's wife, and her name is
Michal.
Michal. Say again.
It's Michael or
Yeah,
Michael?
To us, it sounds strange to call her that, doesn't it? Because we have, like, the archangel's named Michael.
Right.
Right.
The spelling there is a bit different. Yeah, this is a woman's name in this case.
Okay.
Okay. So this is one of Saul's daughters. I think it's his second daughter. They got married, and she understands what the father's up to, doesn't she? And she warns David. And how does she get him to safety?
Out through the windows.
Lets him out a window. Lets him out a window. The house is being watched. I can't imagine what this must be like for David to be in this situation, being watched like this by your king.
Especially after what he had done for the king.
Yes. Yeah, it's got to be supremely confusing
Yes.
because David has been all about helping, hasn't he?
Yep.
He's been all about helping.
And now he's turned against it.
And now Saul has turned against him.
He was a threat to Saul.
Saul
Oh, yeah.
views him as a threat, doesn't he?
No, he was a threat to Saul. Don't you think?
Well, I don't think David's trying to be a threat.
No.
I think David's trying to be a good citizen,
But Saul sees him as a
but
threat.
Saul sees him that way. Yeah, Saul sees him that way.
He doesn't want him to take over his throne.
Yes, he's afraid of losing the throne. Yeah.
Even though God said it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, God's already said that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're still waiting with Doreen's question. We haven't seen an example yet where it says
He doesn't want him.
that Saul knew this, that David was anointed. That we haven't got an example of that just yet. Let's have somebody read verses 13 and 14. And we're looking for the tactics that Michal is using. That Michal is using.
And Michael took an image and laid it on the bread and put a pillow of goat's hair, rubbed his bolster and covered it with a cloth. And when Saul sent message to David, she said he was sick.
Okay, so what are Michal's strategies here, or tactics here, to protect David? What's she doing?
She covered him up in bed so he looked like someone was laying in bed.
Okay, who's him?
David.
David.
David's in bed?
No.
No.
Pillow's not in bed. They're thinking he's in bed.
Okay, they're thinking he's in bed, right? Yeah, she has some sort of, go ahead.
Pillow of goats.
A pillow of goat's hair.
Hair, yeah.
Yeah, goat's hair.
That's what she put so for, like he had his hair there.
Okay, so
I'm not sure what he
she's,
made for his body. Was it pillows?
what does it say? It's not pillows.
Pillow of goat's hair.
And a-
Yeah, that's at the head. Say again?
A statue or an idol or something.
It's like a statue or something. Yeah, they've got some sort of a figure of a human in their house.
And when you say the bolster, that's the top of it. That would be his head with
Yes.
his and the goat's hair coming out.
Yeah.
That would be the top.
So they've covered up this figure of a person, whatever it is. It's interesting they don't call it an idol, but I wonder what on earth would it be, you know, in the house.
It just says an image.
It says an image.
It says image.
Just says image.
Doesn't say
So,
what it actually is.
well, yeah, it doesn't tell us much more about it, does it? But it just seems strange you'd have something
Image.
human size
Yeah.
in your house. Houses weren't that big back then.
Well, they lived in a
just-
palace, probably.
Say again?
When they lived in the palace?
You know, that's a good question, Joe. Where would they have been living? She, as a princess, they may have had a section of the palace or something.
Snuck him out the window, so it would probably be, to me, would be the palace because the palace is being watched for him
Yeah,
and,
yeah, okay.
Looks
Yeah.
like the footnote says a household god.
Oh, it does say a
For
household
image,
god.
Yeah, for
image.
image.
Okay, okay. I'd have to look at the Hebrew. I wonder if they're using the word teraphim, because that's what's used in Genesis to describe household
in
gods.
King James, it says household idols.
Oh, household, in the King James it has idols, okay. I'm gonna have to look at that more closely. That's fascinating.
1913.
Israel was not always consistent in its worship practices. That's the whole Old Testament is about that issue. And it looks like they've let into, David and Michal have let into their house some sort of idol or false god. Sometimes they might have been, you know, figures of like ancestors or something like that. A lot of religions start with ancestral figures, but become like gods over time. Yeah.
You know, when you say false god, Pastor, could it just be a picture of what they thought God looked like? Or-
Yeah, that's one of the odd things about Israel in the ancient world, is they did not make depictions of God.
God, okay.
They tended not to do that.
You know, like we have a big picture of Christ on the back wall.
Yes, yes. Now, archaeologists have dug up some pottery that have an image scratched on it, and it's given the title Yahweh,
Okay,
which is the Old Testament name for God.
for God. Yeah.
But it's clearly a mixed up religion situation because it also has a picture of Asherah
Which is a
beside
different
him.
God.
And Asherah is the Canaanites' female god.
Well,
Okay,
they
she's
had
the fertility
God's for the
god.
sun and God's for the moon, and they had different ones.
Yes, yes. So in that case, they're labeling something with the Hebrew Old Testament name, but he's standing in a place like it would have been Baal, the Canaanite god of storms. So it's possible that some Israelites could have had images that they thought of as Yahweh. But the strange thing about Israel related to the others is that when you go into the tabernacle, there's no image of God.
Right,
There's
right.
no image of him whatsoever. In fact, in later years, when Titus, the Roman general, comes in and takes Jerusalem, this is 70 AD, he goes into the temple because he wants to see Israel's God. He wants to see what it looks like. And they goes into the Holy of Holies and pulls back the curtain, and there's nothing there. And he's stunned. Yeah.
On my notes here, it says it was a human-sized and a smaller household god.
This human-sized or smaller household god.
Were they pretty big?
Well, this one had to be. It was big enough that people thought it was David.
Yeah, David, yeah.
Especially with the goat's hair toupee,
Yeah.
right? That helped sell the whole thing.
It's not fixed. You know, we have a picture of what we think Christ looks like.
Yes.
So, you know, they have their God, what they think their God may look like.
Yeah, but the Lord through Moses specifically tells Israel not to make graven images to
Yeah.
worship them.
Yeah, to worship.
Okay,
right.
that's in the Ten Commandments. He says, don't do that.
In fact, they got in a lot of trouble throughout the Bible for doing so.
They're always getting off on that.
Yeah.
They're always getting off on that. Yeah, it's a constant problem. All right. So we see her tactics here. Goat's hair covered it with his clothes. Someone read for us now verses 15 and 16.
Then Saul sent the messengers to see David, saying, "Bring him up to me in the bed, that I may kill him." And when the messengers came in, bring him up to me in the bed, that I may kill him. And when the messengers came in, behold, the image was in the bed, with a pillow of goat's hair at its head.
Okay. How far is Saul willing to go here to see David dead?
All the way.
Yeah.
All the way?
There he commanded
He
murder.
wants to kill
right
him.
there.
Yeah. Karen, you were kind of stumbling over the language there for a moment. I think what it's saying is, he's saying to the guys, go down there and pick up the bed and carry David to me.
Yeah, because that's what it reads in here is, David saying, bring him up to me in the bed,
Yeah.
that I might slay him.
Yeah. So he thinks David is sick. That's what his daughter is telling him.
Oh, that's why I thought, why? Yeah, he might lay there in bed and let them carry him.
Yeah, it's not
But if
David.
he's
It's not
sick-
David.
yeah, okay, I
but
got
she's
it, I
saying
got it.
she's saying he's
Yes.
sick.
Yeah.
Saul says, bring him to me, bed and all.
Yes.
Okay, so I can kill him. Saul doesn't tell him, you go kill him. He wants to do it himself. He wants to do it
job is
himself.
done.
To make sure that if you want a job done,
Do it
right,
yourself.
you gotta do it yourself, right? That's the old saying.
Sort of like David when he took the head of Goliath to show that he had killed Goliath.
Made sure he was dead.
And when there are other
Yeah.
times throughout the Bible that they said, bring me his head, and they would, in a basket.
Sure, sure, those things happen. Happens to John the Baptist, Lord have mercy. It's a terrible thing. A young lady brings it in on a plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like life has changed much.
Well, I don't know, no one's come by my place with a head lately.
It's
been weeks since I've seen
life. If you're powerful enough, you can kill anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, when you're a powerful person, you're saying. Yeah, you get into a position of power and you can exercise, a dictator can exercise these kinds of freedoms. We've been reading in the news about this fella in Russia, this opposition leader, and they
That goes
think
way
that
back
he
years.
was killed.
That goes way back years, the poisoning.
Yes.
They've done that, well, supposedly quite often with
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah, was he in Russia at the time? Does anybody know?
He was
in Russia at the
He was in
time?
prison,
Oh, he was in prison.
yeah, and he died suddenly.
Oh, he died suddenly, yeah, he died suddenly.
And they're not
Natural causes. Yeah, sometimes people fall out of windows suddenly and stuff like that in Russia.
Sounds like
Yeah,
a
that's
mafia.
dictatorship.
Sounds like a mafia.
Sounds like a mafia, yeah.
And
It's a
they're not
Russian
turning over
mafia.
the body of this fellow. Because from what I read, a simple doctor's visit, sometimes they can't detect it. But when you have a body for, what do they call it, when you go to the morgue? An autopsy.
Autopsy,
They can take several tissue samples and then they
Figure
can
out.
find these kind of things.
yeah.
They turned the body over.
They turned the body over to the mother or something.
Starvation.
They just did.
Yeah.
They just did it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure they got
So-
assurances.
But anyway, Saul is acting very much like a dictator, isn't he? He is acting as a dictator. And he's certainly not observing the Lord's commandments and the ways he's doing things. Is Michael observing the Lord's commandments?
Yes,
Oh, yes.
Yes?
I think so. She's protecting David.
She's protecting David. That's a good thing.
That's her husband.
We're in favor of that.
She's lying, honoring her father.
But she is lying, isn't she?
Oh, yeah.
Deceiving
She's
her
lying.
father.
Well, she's stretching the truth.
She's stretching the truth. Well,
He was laying in bed somewhere, but not right there.
yeah, I don't know. It looks like a lie to me.
He could be sick of Saul trying to
deceiving.
kill him.
Say again.
Sick of Saul trying to kill him.
He's sick of Saul trying to kill him.
Sick with worry.
Sick with worry, there you go.
It's
Oh.
creative solutioning.
Yeah, you guys are being very creative here. I would say Michael is breaking the 8th commandment. She's not just speaking the truth, is she?
What about, she's not honoring her father?
Oh, boy. Oh, now you're on the 4th commandment. She's not honoring her father. Her father is the king.
But he's
Yeah,
breaking a
good
commandment
point,
of
Doreen.
himself.
Say again?
He's breaking a commandment of himself.
He's after the 5th, isn't he?
Is he
You
not?
shall not murder.
Yeah, I mean, is she not protecting Saul from committing the sin himself?
Oh, she's down, yeah, that's a way to turn it around. She's protecting her dad. Good.
But once she's married, Patrick, and I know it doesn't say much in the Bible, once she's married to David, does all of her thoughts go into her husband and not the father no more?
Oh, boy. Now you're getting into marriage counseling.
But you got a double there, because it is your father, plus it is the emperor or
Yeah.
the ruler at that time, so.
How does all that work?
Well,
How
they
does it all
become
work?
one when they get married,
They become one.
and so she's protecting herself too.
She's protecting herself.
In that sense.
Boy, you guys know how to complicate things. Yeah. The thing I say to couples when they come to me for marriage counseling is that after God, the relationship they have with their spouse is more important than the other relationships. That's the most important relationship.
Even with your parents or your brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Your spouse becomes number 2.
That becomes the most important relationship, and I think that's why Moses says that a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife.
Right.
He says that right there in Genesis, and so that's what I teach when I do the marriage counseling. That's what we talk about. So Michael is doing the right thing by protecting her husband rather than listening to her father. She's doing the right thing. David's out the window. He's gone. Does she really need to lie?
Gives him a few more seconds,
He's
maybe.
given time.
I mean,
That's her strategy. That's her strategy.
Well, what's
That's
gonna
what she's
happen
up
to
to.
her when her father finds out she deceived him by hiding?
Yeah,
It's going to go,
good question.
It's still the thing of
Good question. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to see, we'll watch
I'll wait
for
and
that.
see.
We'll see what happens to the relationships over time. This section is all about politics and relationships, isn't it? It's very much about those things. And helps us reflect on our experiences in life, doesn't it? What we have to deal with.
Yeah.
Quite a thing. Boy, you guys have been like really vocal today. You're really loud. That's okay. That's okay. If it gets out of hand, I'll let you know.
What's an interesting topic?
Actually, you do marriage counseling, so you know what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, that's fun times. Somebody else made a comment over here. Was it?
It's an interesting topic.
It is an interesting topic. It is a very dynamic topic here. Let's look at verse. I think we're at verse 17. Someone read for us verse 17 and reflect on Michael's answer to Saul. Verse 17.
And Saul said unto Michael, Why hast thou deceived me so, and sent away my enemy, that he may his escape? And Michael answered, Saul, he said unto me, Let me go, why should I kill thee?
What does this mean? What does she mean when she says this?
So why should we keep him here, so that he would kill you?
he's saying David threatened her, right?
Right?
It sounds like she's saying David was threatening to kill her. If she stayed with her, her life was in danger. She's taken the lie to a new level here, hasn't she? She's really taken things to a new level
She's
with this
probably
one.
afraid of her father.
I'd be afraid of her father too.
Yeah,
He's throwing javelins at his servants in his kingdom.
yeah.
That's pretty scary stuff.
So,
Well, he's already used her by giving her to David.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, we saw that earlier. That was Margaret's pimping comment over here. Saul was pimping his daughter. But there's all kinds of manipulation going on here, isn't there?
Well, that probably takes the heat off of her a little bit with Saul.
Okay. Oh, sure. Daddy, I'm going to get hurt. Right? Daddy, I'm going to get hurt. And he's like, oh, honey, I'm sorry. I'll go kill the bad man. Right? That's kind of how it's going.
Do you think all of them in the castle, Pastor, with too much time on their hands?
At times that happens.
Yeah.
At times that happens. When we come to later in David's life, we'll see that's exactly David's problem at that point in his life. Right now here, David's pretty busy. He's fighting wars, playing the lyre, and those kinds of things. But others are clearly turned into major schemers, haven't they? A lot of scheming.
Sounds
Well,
like
she
Washington
loves
DC.
Sounds like DC. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
How'd you like to have a father-in-law like that?
I wouldn't.
Out there out there on the
Yeah.
farm,
Yeah.
you're out there milking a cow and a spear goes by your head.
It might go into the cow. Think about relationships. Think about relationships in your family, in your lives. Think about the tensions that rise up in families. Families don't always agree with each other, do they? How do you handle that? Is dressing people up as in goat's hair and telling fibs, is that a healthy way to resolve issues?
No.
You usually don't have,
It's not a healthy way.
you usually don't have your parents threatening to kill your husband.
It's an extreme situation, isn't it?
It might be a
It's an
life
extreme
sustaining.
I mean, you
situation.
have-
Well, let's ask the question. Anybody get threatened with death by their in-laws? Anybody here? Nobody. Oh, you're raising your
My
hand.
sister-in-law.
Your sister-in-law? I'm sorry. But this is why when we talk about the eighth commandment, we talk about the issue of honesty. When I'm teaching the catechism with the kids, if you start lying to somebody, what happens to the relationship?
It falls apart.
Okay. It starts to unwind. It starts to unwind. It's the beginning of an unraveling of a relationship. And we can say here, well, Saul and David have a bad relationship, and Saul and Michal have a bad relationship already, and it's true. It's true. But the more you inject deception and dishonesty into a relationship, the less and less likely you are ever going to build trust.
You just keep piling bad on top of bad.
Yeah. It only gets things worse.
Sometimes I think with in-laws, there's a little bit of jealousy when they get married because you're taking one away from that person.
Yeah.
And that they do love that person.
Yeah.
And they feel like, well, I'm losing something, so
Yes.
it could cause some conflict.
Yeah. That's why you give cows to the father. That's why you do that. Go ahead.
My mother-in-law didn't threaten to kill me, but she called one time and told my husband that I wasn't the daughter-in-law she wanted, and I was on the other phone, and I said, well, I'll send him back and you can try again.
I kept the receipt.
How do you think that felt?
And we were married 46 years.
Yes, yes. So you two worked it out, didn't you? You two worked it out. And that's what a couple has to do. If the family's injecting itself, and I suppose Michal and David are trying to do this in their own way, aren't they? They're trying to save the relationship in a terrible situation. But in general, if you come to pastor for counseling, I'm going to encourage you to be honest with the people in your family, to build the relationship on that trust rather than do things that undermine it. Okay?
I don't know if you can answer this or not, but when they come to counsel with you, do you have them conflict between each other there because of what's going on?
If a couple's in conflict, Jim, what I do is I meet with one and then I meet with the other independently because I want to hear from both of them what's going on.
They're arguing.
Yes, they're both hurting.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, they're both hurting. You have to be especially careful because in particular, women in those situations may be being abused.
Yeah.
And you've got to watch for that. And so I hear from both of them independently before I bring them together as a couple. Sometimes that takes several sessions to talk independently with them before they would want to sit down together. So yeah, this is complex stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So for it to work, they have to be honest with you too, and themselves.
Yeah, and I can't always count on that.
Right.
I can't always count on that. That's another reason to hear from both parties. And people have different perspectives for sure. But yeah, you can get into situations where one isn't being honest. Or where they might both not be honest.
Right.
So anyway, complex stuff. There's nothing more complex. Well, I suppose the human genome. But I was going to say there are a few things more complex than human relationships. And the way they develop and the way they change over time. So things we wrestle with as family members, as friends, however that may be. Verses 18 and 19. We're looking at another ally of David, verses 18 and 19.
Now David fled and escaped, and he came to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. And he and Samuel went out and lived at Naioth. And it was told Saul, behold, David is at Naioth in Ramah.
Okay, who's the new ally? Samuel. He's actually an old ally, isn't he?
Yeah.
When David runs, he doesn't run home. That's interesting. He could have left and gone all the way back to Judah down there in Bethlehem. He might have done that. His clan might have protected him. But instead he goes to Samuel, the spiritual leader in Israel. He goes to the prophet. This maybe shows us a little bit about David, okay, and who he's looking to for guidance for his life. Verses, verses 20 to 21. 20 to 21.
And Saul sent messengers to take David, and when they saw the company of the prophets prophesying, and Samuel standing and an appointment over them, the Spirit of God upon the messenger of Samuel, and they also prophesied. And 21?
And 21.
And when it was told Samuel, he sent other messengers, and they prophesied likewise. Samuel sent messengers again the third time, and they prophesied also.
Okay.
It's Saul.
It's Saul. Saul. Yeah.
Did I say Saul?
You said Samuel.
Oh, no. I'm just learning to read.
So as I read this and think about it, I wonder if it's a little bit like this. In medieval times, if you were in trouble, you could seek what they called sanctuary. Sanctuary. What would that mean?
That was nobody could hurt you.
A place where no one could hurt you.
We're that place, Ohio. They come here, and stay in the church to keep from being deported,
Okay, yes, so that word has come up in recent news, hasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, the medieval practice was you go into the sanctuary of the church, and then you were kind of hands off from the government.
Right.
And a similar thing is happening with people who've entered the country illegally.
Right.
And they can go into a church and stay there and not be deported.
Right.
And David has entered into a company of the prophets, okay? It's not a company, it's a group of people is what it is. And they're probably spiritual leaders in training with Samuel, okay? He's the leader there. And so David has entered into this kind of safe space. And Saul is sending messengers, it says.
Then they just join in.
But they get drawn in, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens? How does that happen? What happens?
Spirit of God.
The Spirit of God comes on the messengers, and then they become part of the worship that's taking place there. Okay, they get drawn into it. And I guess all their murderous intentions are gone at that point. We hope. They're drawn in. So David is, for whatever reason, he believes this is the safer place for him to go. Instead of going to his clan, he goes to Samuel. And the Lord is watching out for David, isn't he? He continues to watch out for him. Yeah.
Well, wasn't his clan, wasn't that the tribe of Benjamin?
That's Saul's tribe. That's Saul's tribe. David's tribe is Judah, which is the largest tribe.
That's the largest, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
it is the largest tribe in Israel at this time. But instead of seeking that political muscle, he goes the route of spiritual care. Yeah.
Is it Saul's from the smallest tribe?
Smallest tribe was Benjamin. Yeah. Smallest tribe. That's where Saul was at. So say again.
I think he's on the way out there.
That's how politics works, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's how politics works. And this is a part of the reason probably Saul is so paranoid.
Yeah.
Right? David's from the big tribe. I'm from the little tribe. I'm probably on my
last leg. But it comes right
leg.
down to it, all of them could go against him.
Sure. Yeah.
And Saul probably realizes that.
Yeah. Yeah. So David, and this is a picture of who David is, I think. He looks for the spiritual guidance and the spiritual sanctuary instead of turning to the political muscle, the military muscle, in order to safeguard himself. We'll see that back when Samuel anointed David, the Lord tells Samuel, I'm looking for a man after my own heart. And we see what kind of character David is. He's a spiritual person. He's also a military and political person. Well, he's military, he's becoming political. We'll see that develop in David's character over time. But if he is first and foremost a spiritual person and seeks God's help and sanctuary. I'm going to read out the last verses here to finish out the chapter. Then he himself went to Ramah, that is Saul, and he came to the great well that is at Seku. And he asked, where are Samuel and David? And one said, behold, they are in Naioth in Ramah. And he went there to Naioth and Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon him also. And as he went, he prophesied until he came to Naioth in Ramah. And he too stripped off his clothes, and he too prophesied before Samuel, and lay naked all that day and all that night. Thus it is said, is Saul also among the prophets. Not much to comment on there.
Now, what was the purpose of that?
What was the purpose of that? Yeah.
Well, you seem to be taking everything off, and I want to be part of you.
Okay, we'll tell you what, we'll talk about it briefly next week. I see the kids coming down the hall. Let us bow in our hearts in a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the examples that we see in the Scripture and what they teach us about relationships. And we ask, O Lord our God, that you would help us gain wisdom for the relationships that we are in and how we relate to one another, and above all things, how we relate to our God. Give us a heart like young David, O Lord, a heart that is after you and your way. In Jesus' name we pray it. Amen. Thank you, folks. Lively discussion this morning.